Well, you've been doing great work for years. Some of our listeners may not be familiar with Mission America. Why don't you tell them what you do, how long you've been in existence, and so forth?
Well, Mission America came into existence in the mid-1990s as a website and a ministry that kind of grew out of the fact that I was a liberal for many, many years in my adulthood and became a Christian in the early 1990s and had a worldview change and kind of put my hand up and said, okay, Lord, I have a background in advertising and public relations and all this. What can I do? When you put your hand up and the Lord will then show you what you can do. And sometimes it's a big surprise. And so what he kept leading me to was, many of the current cultural issues, things relating to our kids, but the overwhelming issue that kept being a burden for me was the issue of homosexuality, particularly as it is related to our kids. And so we started this ministry, and many doors have opened, and now I have a radio show in Ohio and do a lot of writing, and our website is missionamerica.com.
Well, what you do, what AFA does, what other groups are trying to do is to get Christians involved in their culture. So let me just ask you a question. It's almost a rhetorical question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you think Christians are engaged in our culture? And if not, why not? Why wouldn't Christians be engaged in the culture in which they live, in which their children are either live or are going to live? Why wouldn't Christians be involved in that?
Well, not enough Christians are involved. Some are, but some are not. And we have some things working against us, the mainstream media, academia, which are all, pushing a different direction. So we have to work extra hard. That's the thing that people need to understand. It's not enough for just some people to work a little bit of the time in dealing with these issues. They really have to, and our churches really need to get involved. And I think the reason people are not involved primarily is a couple things. People are distracted by many other things going on in their lives and are allowing those things to take more preeminence, I think, than they should. But the other is a lot of people don't see the threat. You do things, like, for instance, if your child's running out in the street, you see that threat immediately, right? So you say, stop, and you immediately go for it. I think people are beginning to see, because more and more people are realizing, as this is now at the Supreme Court level with the issue of same-sex so-called marriage, and it's in our schools. I think many people are starting to get their eyes open, but even so, many more people need to begin to see this is a threat to religious liberty. This is a threat to our children's learning in the culture at large and what they will pick up as wisdom in the future. And so I think that's the issue.
Linda, Ray Pritchard here.
Hi.
I'm just scanning down the front page of missionamerica.com. You have a number of excellent articles here, and you've got one called "The Forgotten Victims of Gay Marriage," subtitled "What About All the Children of America?" Talk to us a little bit about those forgotten victims.
This is something that I keep trying to bring up because I don't know that everyone's forgotten it, but when you hear even among in conservative and Christian circles the dialogues about marriage and the benefits of marriage and same-sex marriage and why it's a problem, what you don't hear nearly enough is the big reason, and that's what I was talking about a minute ago with the idea of the threat, that if we establish same-sex marriage as a legality, and now it's in 12 states in the District of Columbia, so in some cases this is becoming reality in some states in this country, but if it's overwhelmingly throughout the culture in many states, it will become the cultural norm. It will become more and more difficult for children to learn what we all were brought up with. The little Megan, when she is 7 years old, will be presented the following scenario in schools, in the media, that and in Hollywood's going to jump right on this and have portrayals of children and these children's programming and teen movies of same-sex kids dating. She will be presented the idea that when you grow up, you might marry somebody of the opposite sex, or it might be somebody of the same sex, and you're not going to know which that is for a few more years, and so it's no big deal. And we're supposed to believe this isn't going to revolutionize the psychology and spiritual development of little Megan. You know, this is going to have a huge impact on her developmentally at that point and going forward. And what I think people don't understand is that we grew up with certain assumptions and a certain framework and security level in our country that these kids won't have. And it's going to mess with their hearts, their minds, their spirits, and their bodies. And I think we are looking toward, I don't know that this is, maybe it's too strong a word, but raising barbarians. I mean, there are kids that are going to be so totally confused by this, and then add in, of course, all the transgendered agenda, that when you grow up in your teens, you can start taking hormones, or you can amputate healthy body parts and so on. I mean, you're talking about really messed up kids.
Well, we're talking to Linda Harvey, president of Mission America. Her website, the website of the ministry, is missionamerica.com. Linda, I was perplexed, saddened, I don't know how to really describe it, to read this morning that Exodus International is closing its doors and shutting down its outreach to the gay community. Had you heard that?
Yes, I read that too, and it's just, it's not too surprising, but yes, it's very, very sad.
Well, I was reading some of the statements by Alan Chambers, who's the president, and I'm trying to sort through what, and I think I hear his heart. He's a former homosexual himself. He's married now, is living a heterosexual life, and I may even have children. I don't know, but wrote a letter of apology to the gay community. I understand that there are certainly Christians out there who have been very hostile to homosexual men and women, probably said ugly and nasty things. I understand that hurt is out there. As far as I know, Alan Chambers has not backed away from the biblical view of homosexuality, but I'm a little perplexed. I want you to try to help me understand what's happening with Christians in terms of this this idea that if you stand firmly for biblical truth, that is the same as being hurtful and being ugly to homosexual men and women. Can you help me understand maybe where Alan Chambers is coming from, where this is a ministry that's been around for over, I think, 30 plus years, trying to help homosexuals come out of that lifestyle and to see their sexuality from a biblical perspective. I'm not sure I understand why Christians seem to be having such a difficult time keeping firm stands separate from hatefulness. Help me to understand this.
Well, it's always going to be a reality that some people are not going to receive truth very well. That doesn't mean that we're allowed to just recklessly present it any old way, but I'm sure AFA gets this all the time, I am sure. We get it all the time. Most of the pro-family groups get it all the time. In fact, the Southern Poverty Law Center has labeled us all hate groups, and none of us are hate groups. I mean, not all of us, but, you, Family Research Council, Mission America, several others, in that we're just trying to tell the truth and be very clear that people don't have to go down this road. There's no evidence that you're born this way. Well, back to Alan Chambers, however, he has a very problematic history in recent years because he has teamed up with the so-called Gay Christian Network. He appeared with them at a conference and was a major speaker and told them that he thought they were his brothers and sisters in Christ and that they would all be in heaven, and they just had a little bit different angle about how to go there. So he has greatly, in my view and other people's view, quite sadly compromised biblical truth and has given that indication for a long time. And in fact, I believe it's tonight, there's going to be a program on, Lisa Ling is going to have a program, I think it's on Oprah's network, where Alan Chambers is going to appear. I'm not sure he's going to make this announcement about Exodus, but it will be interesting to see what he says because he has been apologizing for, I think, really it's the biblical stand on homosexuality in the Bible. It's not simply apply it. Now, we will see how that rolls out, but numerous communications from him have indicated that he sees people that are the pro-family leadership and folks that are standing up and trying to make an apology for the truth in a very difficult culture. He is now treating us as if we are almost like the enemy, and that's very sad.
Well, Linda, this raises a broader question. There does seem to be, in some circles, some evangelical circles, a backing off by some of our leaders who they wouldn't go as far as Alan Chambers, I don't think, but they don't want to talk about this issue. They don't want to talk about gay marriage. I guess they find it just too hot to handle. They're afraid of turning people off or causing people to stay away from the church that with understandably good motives, they want to reach them for Christ. What's to be done about this, Linda? I mean, there seems to be, at least in some quarters, that we would have expected strength from a moving away from speaking out on these moral and spiritual, cultural issues.
You know, this is quite an interesting thing to observe, why people are backing away something that is so clear, and why our opponents ideologically are gaining the ground and are bold and brave and willing to step out and, making networking and making friends in the culture, getting more funding. It's very perplexing. You could call it an element of intimidation. In fact, I think that would be one of the big things to call it, because the homosexual gay lobby is very, very hard on people. They will come after you. They will come after politicians. They'll come after pastors if you have any following at all. They'll come after you to some extent if you step out in a public way on this issue. Yet people have to do this. I mean, I think we've become too comfortable in thinking today that we can make friends with the world and we're never going to have to make some waves, and it's going to cost us. People have forgotten that the gospel may indeed cost you something, and the stakes are enormous. We have to do it. I don't know what else we can say except that it needs to be done, and people need to stop thinking of these folks as too intimidating and this issue is too hot to handle. It's very clear in Scripture, and you can handle it.
You know, Linda, like you, I've been writing about this and thinking about this issue for a long time. I never chose to do it. I mean, it just seemed when I came to American Family Association in 1996, it just kind of hit me that this was unfolding before my very eyes. And this is my theory. It's not just mine. It's I think a lot of people's who think about this issue, about why it's important. So let me throw it at you and get your thoughts on it. But when people will oftentimes accuse American Family Association, Mission America, Americans for Truth, all these groups that do take a strong stand on this issue, and they'll say you're obsessed. You're obsessed with this issue. You know, why is this so important to you? To me, the homosexual movement does not stand alone in a vacuum. It is the spear point of the secular movement in this country, rooted in Darwinian evolution, that says we're all just animals. Sex is no big deal. Therefore, whom you have sex with doesn't matter. It should not be a matter of public policy, except to understand that everybody is different in terms of their genetic and biological makeup. So to me, the reason why this issue is so important is because it is the vanguard of the movement to secularize this country and scrub away the Judeo-Christian view of everything. Right. So battling and wrestling with this movement, and maybe this is why a lot of Christians shy away from it, is going to get the big guns turned on you. This is why supporters of abortion, participate in gay pride events. You wouldn't think they would have anything to do with each other, but they do. They're both part of a secular movement that hates Christianity and sees Christianity as the enemy. And I want to get your thoughts on whether or not that's a valid way of interpreting